WWT presents Partner Spotlight.
All right, hello everybody. Welcome to another Partner Spotlight brought to you by WWT Presents. My name is Derek Monahan. I'm the practice manager for AI and high performance architectures at WWT. So the rapid advancement and adoption of generative AI is really kind of taking our CEOs by storm, and our executive leaders are really trying to look at ways to transform their business, but also do it quickly and at scale. And we see this also from a digital transformation perspective. And so one of the things that we're going to talk about today is how do we do this not just from a scalability perspective, but how do we do it responsibly in a very secure way? And so today we're going to talk about AI readiness and the role high performance architectures will help organizations move faster from an ROI perspective, and also how to take advantage of the investments from a technology perspective. Joining me today, we have two great speakers that are going to join. One, Alan Klingerman from Dell. He is a chief strategist, a field CTO for the Power Edge and Workload organization at Dell Technologies. Alan brings with over 30 years of experience in just about almost everything from cloud, containers to AI, and also data analytics. In addition, we have Matt Halcomb. He's one of our principal solution architects here at WWT. And why don't we just jump right into it? So Alan and Matt, really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for being here today.
Oh, you bet. I'm excited to have you. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Thanks, yep. No, great to have you on. So one of the questions I want to kick off here is if we let's go back about a year, and I want to talk about Q4 almost specifically of 2022, when essentially we saw this explosion in generative AI. We saw, ChatGPT come by storm, and really overnight almost, we have executives just having a heavy focus in figuring out generative AI and how it skyrocketed. There's also a lot of pressure on companies to really address this and how they need to react to it. So I want to kind of get your perspective here. Looking back over the last year when this explosion occurred, is there anything that you're surprised about, anything around the emergence of AI, and also how business leaders and IT leaders have moved forward to really address this?
Not surprised by anything, I would say, related to the explosion and the excitement that came about because of what OpenAI brought to market, right, with ChatGPT. It seemed like it brought a aha moment from all of the executive leadership of what AI could do for their organizations, right, and really accelerate, to your point, their digital transformation efforts. I would say, this AI journey, I've been doing AI for far too long than I care to mention. You said how long I've been in the industry. Thanks for kicking me under the bus there. But think about how long it's been. Yeah, we've been chasing AI for way longer than I've been doing this. And it's just interesting to see because the technology improves so quickly, right? We think about it in three kind of areas. We think about it in the area of compute, right? So that's the modern architecture, just you described, high performance architecture of CPUs and GPUs together. The calculus, the transformer models that came about to make this cognitive AI real, right, and generative AI. And it took that power, right, the high performance architecture to get it done. I'm building a Ferrari in order to, accomplish this. What I would say I'm a little surprised about is everybody took extreme interest. They understood why. There's pressure from the C-level and the board, but man, it just seems still like it's taking way too long to adopt. While it's cautious, as for all the reasons you described, especially from a ethical security perspective, everybody needs to do this because I think we're at the biggest time that I've seen ever since the .com, era of innovation. And it's going to be way bigger than the .com era was, of innovation thrust forward by AI. And it is an opportunity to disrupt every single industry. So everybody needs to think about how do they do this and think about their technical debt, because I think this is also what get raised up. Hey, I want to innovate, but I've got way too much technical debt to even move forward. So just a couple observations there.
No, that's great, Alan. Matt, I want to get your perspective on this too, because you work heavily with, as a principal architect, you see a lot of customers, you talk to a lot of customers, you also are building this in the lab. So when we talk about, working with customers, we actually deliver this as a service. We also work on a lab to test and prove in a proving ground. Can you comment on Alan's kind of comments and what you're seeing from this explosion and this acceleration about AI over the past year? I just want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, Derek. And just like Alan spoke about, am I surprised? No. We've been helping customers with AI for almost 10 years. But it was in pockets, right? And I guess the fun portion of this now that it's not just a science project inside of an organization. A large organizations were doing a level of artificial intelligence inside their environment, but now it's enterprise wide. And that's the fun that's coming to it. And I guess the surprising part is people are getting caught off guard by the scale. But like we said, and you both said, it's the success. It's the usability, right? We talk around that, why am I going to do what I'm going to do? I need to see outcomes. And they were able to see with a couple fun projects when it all started, right? Write me a paragraph, write me an article, make me a song, give me a pretty picture. And they started like, wow, I really can use AI. And then they started applying that to where we were having data-driven outcomes, right? We talked around that all the time, and where executives were no longer going to use gut decisions to drive their organization. And now they just realize that that's a reality, that they can be now truly leveraging data within inside their organization to help drive their organization in a number of facets. Just like here at Worldwide, where we went out there and identified not just 2 or 3 use cases, but 30 or 40 or 50 use cases. And the challenge that we had even in our own world and our own organization was which ones were most impactful? Which ones could we get going most successfully first to drive outcomes that truly made a difference? So again, not surprised by this. I wish it would have happened sooner, but truly excited around the opportunity in front of us all.
So thanks, Matt. That's great. I think the use cases that you brought up were super relevant, especially when we look at horizontal across organizations. And I want to kind of double click on that because we see a lot of use cases and across our customers today, and not just any use case. We see a lot of customers that are starting out with 10, 50, maybe 100 and going into 200 use cases. We have one customer that is at the 200 use case level. And it's all about, to me, prioritization and helping our customer with strategic ways to help them figure out what are those most important use cases and then going from there. So are there any top use cases that you see that are bubbling up that helps our viewers especially understand how we can start driving this horizontal AI across the organization and helping accelerate those use cases?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Matt. I was going to say, here's what I would kind of call out. And I love what you said there of also accelerating time to market, because this is where I think a lot of businesses struggled with artificial intelligence in the past, where they might have, had one interesting use case, but it didn't have a high enough ROI to the business. And it just kind of never went anywhere, right? Because it wasn't important. This is where the power of WWT and Dell technologies really come together, through business workshops to help the customer really stack rank horizontally across the organization, across every business unit, right? What are the most impactful challenges they have in the business? And then how do we apply certain data science principles to it, right? It could be areas that we've been doing for a long time, Derek, whether it's high performance data analytics, which many people overlook and get confused with AI, traditional AI, or generative AI. We're going to pick the right technology to solve the business problem and the outcome. What we're looking for is, out of all of those that we find across the organization, what are the top 5, right, where we can achieve the fastest time to market and the highest ROI for the company? What we found in doing this, we've identified over 256 use cases through a number of workshops we've all been doing together. And what we found, it kind of correlates into 4 key areas that definitely are more horizontal. So while these are not the only ones, they boil to the top. They're the ones that can achieve the highest ROI in a company, and they're the easiest to get started and relevant to most organizations. The first one I'll call out is support assistance. And I'll give a couple ideas, because I always get the question like, hey, Alan, Dell's a global 50 company. What are you guys doing with AI? We've been doing this, for a very long time, well over a decade, right, in our AI and high performance analytics journey. But when I think about support assistance, think about what it could do for Dell tech support. If we trained a generative AI model, right, an LLM, on our entire knowledge base of every single product Dell has ever released, couldn't we have the most intelligent tech support agent ever? Imagine having a level 2 engineer that could correlate problems that nobody could ever see. It might have taken them days or months searching through a knowledge base to find the issue. These are common things that, an LLM, could be powered using traditional, chat bots, but in the back end powered by an LLM. So support assistants are a huge area. And think about that in the area or the business domain of customer operations, because it could be technical support. It could be standard support. It could be sales. It could be operations. This is, it can hit every aspect of the business. Then we think about it of just internal enablement. And I'll give one example of things that we're doing within our sales teams. Imagine being able to train in a different way. Instead of coming and watching a 20-minute video, what if I could have a conversation and have a role play? So think about Dell hires new hire, people all the time. We have a great farm system directly from interns across universities in Texas. They come into the system, they don't know anything about technology necessarily. They don't know anything about our products. We have to train about our products and how to objection handle against our competition. What if we could use an LLM to do that in a different way? We just rolled that out over a quarter ago, and the excitement and enthusiasm we saw from the young kids coming in and using the tool was infectious. Like, they loved it. So internal enablement and thinking about internal enablement in different ways is key. And just like Matt said, right, it's in the name, generative AI, content and data generation, right? You're generating net new content. Think about, different ways of creating that content, not just in tool sets. Like some of you probably have seen Microsoft Copilot. Certainly a lot of features coming in O365 now, or even in the Adobe suite. Think about being able to power, all of your internal data. And I'll give you one example. Like, we have lots of sales and marketing and pre-sales engineers for our teams to be able to go to our customers and bring relevant information at the right time, but it's hard to sift through, right? We got the typical thing. You come to Google search engine like experience and you hope to find something. Wouldn't it be great if you were directed by an LLM right to that information? And maybe, for example, it created a PowerPoint that was relevant to the customer's situation and design the solution to start with to accelerate the entire motion for both the organization, the customer, as well as the sellers and the pre-sales team. So content and data generation is huge. And then the last one I'll call out that I think everybody got excited. As an old programming geek, I got super excited. It was one of the first things I did with OpenAI when I had a chance to play with GPT and open beta. I had to program something. Like, I went back to my old days in IBM mainframe. It knows more COBOL than I forgot. Like, it's amazing what it can do, right? I asked it to create a simple program, and I saw in seconds the program appear. I could compile it and run it. So code generation, because everybody has significant technical debt. It's not eliminating jobs. I think this is the fear that everybody has of AI. But think about it this way. No organization is ever going to be able to hire enough software development teams. What if I had, the ability to iterate my innovation right through my digital transformation efforts instead of maybe every 6 months like Dell used to, moving to a quarterly basis or a monthly basis or a weekly basis or a daily basis, because I have faster tools, right, enabling me to get that work done. So code development and software engineering is massive. Those are the four that we're kind of seeing bubble at the top. Matt, what are you kind of seeing out there?
Yeah, again, same use cases here worldwide, right? So when the craze hit, first set of environments we built out for our data scientists were just exactly what you're talking about. How do we leverage what's in our Salesforce organization, helping our sales teams be more efficient in what they're doing? Leveraging this thing called our Advanced Technology Center, right? How do we help our customers understand what we have available? How can we help them solve problems? It's coming in the form of an intelligent chat bot that's going to be out there really, really soon. Development of code. That's a great, to me, I look at that one and I think that one scared me a little bit, just to be real honest with you. So we built a development environment for our application development team, helping them use large language models and generative AI to help write code with a number of different, like you spoke of, Copilot, Fopilot, Tabby, Codium, or some of their favorites they were looking at. But it also got me thinking, it got me a little bit scared, because now I went from 150 to 200 developers that are writing applications to now 1,000 because the general code writer now is getting successful. But my question back to them was, how are you taking a look at the hundreds of lines of code that you're generating? And have you maybe taken a look, and is there a security possible breach that might be happening in there? Or what is your, again, we'll talk in this one even, we had a lot of success and a lot of customers struggle with being successful. And the first thing we asked them is, what data are you going to use? And that's an important thing, that if they haven't got the right data, they're not going to get the right outcome that they're trying to drive towards. And I think that's important, that security and data are a huge play and what's going on here. And again, choosing an open source model, proprietary model, we can have those conversations. But again, I think it all falls back to a number of different areas. That it can't be a single thread and a myopic look at what you're doing. It has to be a number of things where data makes a huge play in this.
Yeah, Matt, thanks for that input on your the use cases. I think one of the things I was thinking about when both of you were speaking, you were there was a theme there that I noticed, and I think one of the things that we talk to customers about a lot is the customer experience. And so, just to give some vertical examples, whether you're in healthcare, for example, you have a co-pilot, let's say that's helping a doctor automate those tedious tasks for EHR documentation, or it could be, in financial services, looking at a lot of automation in underwriting decisions, or using Gen AI assistants, to analyze and synthesize financial data. Whether it's that or retail, looking at to improve conversion. And it's all about that smarter, personalized service, personalized avatars. And that's where the customer service, I see that trend a lot across a lot of different organizations. So you guys both hit on a key point, though, that ties this all together is the data. And I think the data is something that I'd like to touch on just for a second, if you don't mind, because coming from a background in data analytics and data strategy at Worldwide, and we look at this as one of the most pivotal, important, fundamental foundations to an AI strategy. And what's interesting, most organizations we talk to, they don't have necessarily a modern data architecture or a data strategy that they're thinking about in terms of the AI outcome. And they might have a strategy today they put together. Maybe it's based on maybe an older, methodology. But what we need to start thinking about is, how do we modernize that? How do we collect this data, not just the ETL, which has been around for 10 years. I'm talking about more of there's new ways, automated ways, more efficient ways to manage this data, but leverage it. And one notice I just want to bring up from a customer that mentioned recently, the messy data. And messy data was causing them to provide a really poor AI experience, and actually impacted the accuracy and the cost of the outcome. So can you guys comment for a second? I want to touch on that just for a second. How customers, we think, struggle with this, and how do we advise clients to really help them move forward with their data architecture?
Well, it's actually you want to take it first, Matt?
Well, yeah, I'll go quickly here. And again, and Derek, let's touch on that, right? The customers that we're dealing with aren't mom and pop shops, right? These are global industries in which they have data repositories around the globe, and there are obviously data sovereignty, data locality rules, and not everybody wants to. It's probably not a good idea to be moving data around. And you're not going to create, like back in the early days of AI, just a massive unstructured data lake. And again, like you spoke of, data lakes, data warehouses, data is everywhere, and we're collecting. There's endpoints everywhere. We're collecting more and more of it. How do we make sure we have the right data? How do we make sure we have the right access to the data? How do we make sure that we're leveraging the most important data that's relevant to the conversations or the outcomes we're trying to drive from? And again, like you said, our organization we're speaking with, for the most part, they're like, yeah, I have data repositories, or yeah, I had a data warehouse, but none of it's connected. All of it's disjoint. And again, we're going to go back to that thing that scared me in the security play, that if you're granting access to an AI component that can draw upon the data source, you may be giving access, if somebody asks the right question, to very sensitive data. So there's an important portion around the data. It just has to be the right data, it has to be protected data. So again, the maturity has to happen here. There has to be a conversation again, because regardless of whatever infrastructure, our large language model, we help them develop it. It can't be trained properly to give the proper outcomes that we were looking for without the proper data.
100%. I can't agree more. And I love what you said there around security, because I think the one thing that a lot of people overlook is, it's in the name, large language model. This requires vast amounts of data. And when you start talking about vast amount of data from an organization, what do we all do every day? We create IP for our companies. That IP is the most, protected, valued asset within a company. How do I make sure that if I'm going to use LLMs to the most extreme extent and power it, using generative AI, it needs to have access to my most sensitive information by its very nature. What did I say earlier in those examples of what Dell is doing? Do you think that knowledge base that we have of every product ever made from Dell from a support standpoint is ever going to live outside of our firewall? No. That would be insane, right? So those good examples of how people need to think about this from a contextual perspective. If they're going to do this, it needs to be powered by vast amounts of data. And yes, to all of you, to both of your points, the big challenge is, and I think this is what comes up with a lot of our joint workshops, right, is helping the customer sometimes step back. Like they've kind of failed in that journey of like moving even sometimes, to hindsight to understand what happened yesterday and why, using in-memory databases and a consolidated data mart and self-service reporting. We did that a while ago, but I find many commercial organizations still struggle in that one step. And sometimes, people think AI, this stuff all gets confused. I had one healthcare institution recently where they were looking at, basically it was an SCM problem with their supply chain and managing supplies across hospitals across their region. They actually had an SCM problem in a database and an in-memory architecture standpoint with analytics behind it that wasn't put in place. It wasn't an AI project, but they had no idea. But the great thing is AI prompted all this stuff to the bubble to understand what the problems are in the business using data. So how do we help them think about those modern architectures, right? From, a Delta Lake, a lake house architecture, a data fabric, a data mesh. We could have a whole different conversation. I know there's a bunch that you guys have already published for, viewers to go look at. And I would suggest you do that. But, we're doing some exciting things at Dell around this because we think it's so important. In our open data ecosystem with lots of partners, we announced our partnership with Snowflake a couple of years ago. Think about that in a mesh type topology. With our graph relationships with things like a graph database with Tiger Graph. And then certainly modern data architectures using things like Cloudera CDP. And by the way, a lot of people don't even know Teradata is backended, on a Dell platform. And then our most recent one that we just introduced as part of our Dell Validated Designs is our relationship with Starburst, which is super exciting. With the Trino engine, be able to provide super high speed, advanced analytics and AI, on the same platform.
Alan, appreciate your perspective because I know you have a lot of background history with data analytics. So this could be a topic in itself for another time. But I do want to move on because we could talk about things like hygiene and how it helps improve accuracy. How it can actually improve the customer experience, because we see a lot of customers, that customer experience point mentioned earlier, if you have high quality data, it's going to help function properly. It's actually going to deliver the desired results almost every time versus having that challenge with the data and not providing those results in a very effective manner. So it's all about the user experience, saving money, improve accuracy. But all this doesn't matter unless you have a platform to build it on top of, right? So I want to get a perspective. Let's kind of hone in on the technology side for a second, because we look at Worldwide looks at it from a business of data perspective, and then what we call the technology of data. And this is where things like high performance architecture comes into play. You mentioned something called Dell Validated Designs, Alan. I want to kind of get your thought here because a lot of executives and even board level, the AI is an initiative across the board, but a lot of times they don't know how to get started, or they need to understand, how do I size this properly for my use case? I would love to hear how we can help accelerate our customers' journey into the right platform, right architecture at the right time. What are your thoughts, Alan, on this one?
Yeah, no, that's exactly why we've been doing the Dell Validated Designs for quite some time. And obviously with everything going out on with generative AI, it was a perfect opportunity for us to do a new one, a new series, right? And by the way, a long roadmap. This is not one and done. This is a complete series of Dell Validated Designs across artificial intelligence and the traditional AI domain as well as generative AI. We started with generative AI, but we're going to go back and cover a lot of traditional AI use cases as well, and do them in a different way, right? Because we had published some of these things over the last several years, and the technology has changed since that time. And we're really trying to get, in these blueprints, the best way to think about it in the context of a playbook or a blueprint, of trying to answer the questions we've already talked about. Where do they start? What are the use cases? What is, how do they best use their data? How do we activate everybody horizontally across the company? How do we minimize risk, and how do we do it responsibly? So our goal, right, given that backdrop, was how do we help accelerate business outcomes with generative AI? So we started with putting things at inference, because I can quickly take pre-trained models and put them at inference, right? Using and powered by some of my data, whether it's a traditional customization and fine-tuning approach, or some of the more modern approaches with things like RAG. Scale AI with consistency to streamline that deployment, to your point, because these are kind of unknowns, right? Hey, VMware and other methodologies have been known for a long time. This is more esoteric for the traditional, IT operators that have never managed, let's just call it out what it used to be, high performance compute, right? Because I still view high performance architecture, and I love that we're using the same terminology of HPC, high performance data analytics, and AI coming together in one place with the same type of architectural requirements, but it's different from traditional IT.
Yeah. Hey, Matt, oh, sorry, Ellen, you got another comment?
No, I just a couple things on the around that, just so the audience knows. In the DVD, or Dell validated designs with NVIDIA, we think about it in the context of NVIDIA certified systems. So think about the elements of compute, accelerated compute with NVIDIA GPUs. These validated designs for inference, customization, and training I just mentioned, using things like the ATC from WWT to actually prototype and see what that looks like in production. And then, our joint led service initiatives together.
Yeah, Alan, you hit on a couple things, and that was a question I had really to follow up on. That is, this is not just about a Dell Valid design for inferencing. You can do things like model customization. You can use it for AI training. I mean, Matt, what are your thoughts here? Because I know you've experimented and starting to look a little bit at it. Yeah.
So the fun, they create the Dell validated design, and I get to validate the Dell validated design, right? So again, proving and showcasing to customers and bringing the architecture to life, right? So that they put, as Alan put it, the blueprints or the recipe to success. And again, you can follow that to a T, and you will have an environment. You can use that as a guide as well to help guide you in your journey around. There will be some availability. Dell will make customizations available that if you like a certain component, and what we haven't talked about here is that it's not just a hardware validation, right? It's a stack. So we have to go around and include the software components that connect this, the networking that connected, the dedicated storage that brings into play, but having even the consumption, right? We both as organization have sold a lot of heavy hardware as a bill of materials, and a customer's consumed or brought that in their data center, but then struggled to be successful in the consumption. How do they present that to their end user to allow them to gain the true ROI of that bill of materials that they purchased? So with having the Dell Valid design, it's the entire stack that we can bring an organization in, help them understand that this from the end user level, what it looks like and how they're going to interface, and leverage the underlying infrastructure that we're going to help the IT team design. So it enables us to take and showcase and put in front of an organization, Mr. Data Scientist or Mrs. Data Scientist, here's how you're going to leverage this environment. Here's how we'll allow you to be successful. Infrastructure team, here's how you're going to now be the hero for your analytics team, and how you're going to be able to support their ability and their need to have a number of different data sets available, or a different approved large language models, or different approved technologies and features and functionalities inside the organization, where we're literally able to bring those different people to the table, all focus on a single outcome. And that's why I really enjoy the Dell Valid design, because it's more than just a bill of materials.
Yeah, Matt, that's That's a great point. It is more than just a bomb, and we do a lot of bombs worldwide. But really, we look at that outcome, and that focus is really helping the customers achieve from the start to finish. We look at the entire, we call it ideate, ideate to outcome, and we help our customers from that initial ideation stage into the actual outcome. And all in between, there's a lot of work that's involved. And one of those things, and I want to get your perspective on this, Matt, is, it's fine. These Dell designs are one part of the equation, but there's a lot more to it, of course. And we think about this as a ecosystem. How can customers build their AI journey, and how do they help accelerate that AI journey through that ecosystem? And how do they really unlock the full potential of AI? I want to get your perspective on a couple things, because this is something that I think we've done in the past, and we're working closely with our customers on. But what is your perspective, Matt, on that journey, and how do we help customers?
So again, it's hands-on, right? We can read all day long, but it comes down to where rubber meets the road, and how do I prove out that a specific open source or proprietary large language model is right for my use case? As Alan spoke of different use cases, natural language processing is great until someone has an accent. And the chatbot, we've had 2 different customers that wanted to leverage that sort of use case in customer service. And when an individual or a customer speaking at a certain accent, when they said confirm, it thought it said complete. And it didn't. And it ended up canceling their order, and the customer had to go back through the whole thing again. So it's being able to enable customers to do innovative work and try things out. How does it work? And what are my options a lot of times, Derek, right? And Alan, you know this too. Customers kind of get a mindset that there's only a single solution in a certain vertical. And what we're able to do, Derek, is we're able to leverage Dell's partnership, just like with Worldwide, and bring together a number of great partners that we all work well together with, and enable a customer to see in real time, how does a solution work? How do I position this with the data scientists, and what success that I can enable them at different levels, and almost go a crawl, walk, run approach, instead of just hurry up and do something for no reason, or just for the sake of doing something. And that's where we leverage ATC. That's where we leverage Dell's assistance and bringing this technology to life, enabling them to take a look at a number of different large language models. How are they going to do their different types of training? How do I manage this underlying infrastructure that's a complete beast, that's connecting high-speed networking and accelerated compute that isn't cheap? And we have to make sure that we're properly utilizing it and getting the most out of our investment. Those all is what we're able to do inside the MS technology system with the help of Dell technology.
Yeah, Matt, that makes sense. And I think one of the things I was thinking about listening to you, and even going back to Alan's point, there's a couple of notes here. One was, I think you mentioned it too, Matt, is optionality and modularity and composability. And I know those are different terms, but we do this, we think about those things, I think, within the ATC, but also with our customers, as I don't know of a single customer that just wants a single vendor, single solution, unless they're looking for something very niche area. But I think at the same time, I like what this Dell Valley design, and Alan, you talked about it. I think there's a modular approach, correct me on this, but I think that's one of the things that I think that really appeals to a lot of customers. They want to see how they can test and leverage different architectures using this design for different use cases. And then obviously, how do I scale it? And that's what I think is really beneficial about this process.
If I could pull on one string there, because I like what you said, it is a modular, scalable approach to enterprise grade AI, right? That was the whole design premise of it. And to Matt's point, we talked about the infrastructure and NVIDIA certified systems, or I did earlier. One of the things that's very important is the software stack, right? So in this first iteration, the Dell validated design with NVIDIA, it's kind of in the name, right? We are leveraging the NVIDIA AI Enterprise, which is kind of best of breed at this point, almost like the operating system for AI, just like Red Hat did, for Linux. They've kind of done the same thing for the open source community, where somebody feels comfortable moving forward with a closed source model with support, and many enterprises like that, right? I want to know that I've got a blanket wrapped around me that I can call somebody for support. And they're doing some great work there, especially in this area with generative AI with their Nemo models. So you can imagine back to what you both were talking about in diversity. Yeah, so you can imagine a Dell validated design with XXX in the future. Lots of interesting things to come. So think about, even you might have seen recently an announcement that we had with Meta with bringing the Llama architecture into this, so that we've got a different pre-trained model from an open source community. And you will see more and more partnerships added to this roadmap of not a product, but our Dell validated designs.
Wow. Well, Alan, that's incredible. So really, I can only just say at this point, I think we're close on time, but I really want to close it out here, and I appreciate both your time. I think that's all we have time for today. But Alan, thanks so much, really, for your time, sharing your insights. Super appreciative. You kind of schooled me a bit on the Cobalt side. I can't really comment on that, but I appreciate your perspective on the codification and things like Codify and other solutions that we're evaluating ourselves. So a really great example. And likewise, Matt, thanks so much for your help in taking time away from your busy day, meeting with customers and architecture. So one of the things that I want to thank our viewers tuning into WWT.com. If you would like to learn more what WWT and Dell are doing around our advanced AI initiatives for our customers, please visit. We have a Dell partner page and on our website, which is our platform, WWT.com. And we have lots of other resources in addition to that are out there, topics, articles, and other labs that we were building out. So please look at our platform and take a look at that. So feel free to reach out for any questions in the future, and really appreciate your time. So thanks again for both of your time today, and great conversation.
You betcha. Thanks all.